thank you so much for joining today. Would you be able to give a kind of brief introduction about yourself, kind of your name, hobbies and things like that, kind of anything that's aside from lipodystrophy for now, just a bit of an introduction?
Yeah, my name's Karen. I'm a retired nurse. I was actually a retired ophthalmic nurse. Hobbies are archery, spending time with family. I used to do medieval reenactment, but unfortunately health problems have curtailed that, and I've recently had to retire as an archery judge. I used to compete for the county where I live, for Yorkshire, but again, health problems have stopped all that. But no, yeah, that's about it really.
And what type of lipodystrophy do you have?
I have familial partial lipodystrophy type 2.
What do you feel is the biggest impact that lipodystrophy has on you?
Well, obviously, I'd never heard of it before about 2002. It was a cousin who put me onto it, who'd been diagnosed with it. So that's what set the ball on, but I couldn't get anyone to listen. I think the big thing for me is that I suffered hunger and I had multiple health conditions before that. Now, the biggest impact on lipodystrophy, I've got a name to put everything together to. It explains the way I look, it explains all my underlying health conditions. And I suppose in some ways it just makes it easier to deal with it, because when you talk to health professionals and everyone else now, you say, I've got this lipodystrophy, and it's easy because there's papers out there about it. Whereas trying to pull everything together, it's hard. I mean, it's also given the reason for my excessive tiredness as well, the diabetes, absolutely everything. And once I knew, I was able to get the right dietary advice, just try and take more control of my life. So, but it wasn't until 2014 when I was diagnosed when I actually got the specific advice. But yeah, that's about it really.
So could you tell us a bit more about your diagnosis journey? So how it came about, how you were able to be diagnosed with lipodystrophy?
Yeah, basically I started hitting real problems with underlying health conditions all linked to lipodystrophy back in the 90s. Mm-hmm. And then I was diagnosed with mixed hyperlipidemia in 2002. Basically was accused of being an alcoholic, told I was an alcoholic, and it was written all across my medical notes. Wouldn't even believe my husband, even though at the time, I was teetotal. And then things just progressed from there, and I had diabetes, mixed hyperlipidemia, I had problems with blood pressure, and eventually I had a problem with my knee, so I went to see my GP, and it just happened to say to me, this was back in 2013, you haven't got ladies' legs, have you? And so I said, well, funnily enough, family and everything else, and I explained about a cousin, I explained, the problems I had, and he just went away and did some digging. And then he actually rang me the following day to say he'd done a lot of digging and this is what he thought I had. He was making referrals through to the diabetes service at the local hospital. It took a couple of months for me to actually be seen by the consultant there. And he'd actually seen one other patient with lipodystrophy. So the moment he saw me, he put everything together. And then he rang me at home on a Sunday night saying, I found where I need to refer you to. And he referred me on to Dr. Steer's team of the Severe Insulin Resistance Service at Addenbrooke's. And it wasn't until 2014 that I was seen, and I got the diagnosis confirmed with genetic testing. So it took quite a long time, but I could say that medical professionals were at fault, but they're not, because it's such a rare condition and there's so many different variables with it. It is difficult to diagnose, and you need to see someone who knows about it. So I was interested enough to actually do a bit of digging and research. So, but I had a lot of misdiagnoses over the years. So it was just, like I said earlier, just nice to know what exactly was causing all my health problems. So
yeah, I completely relate to that. I was very similar with my story in that my legs were something that was pointed out to me, because I've got quite, I'm sure as many of us have, I've got really, really slim thighs, but really, really muscular calves.
Absolutely.
And so many people asked me if I was a bodybuilder, and I was like, this is really offensive. I'm not a bodybuilder. Not that I mind, but
I was asked that right from an early age, and it picked up. So I did gymnastics as a child from about age 10. people kept saying, "Oh, you've got really good muscle development," and then they kept calling me across, saying, "Come on, show us your muscles."
Yeah.
But it was just the way it was, and my gran was like it, and mother was like it. There was quite a lot of people in the family who had that same structure, body.
And since your diagnosis journey, did that then trigger diagnosis in other family members?
No.
No.
The best way I can describe it is, apart from a cousin who initially sent an email and we found out that she'd been diagnosed with, she was looking for information on family health. Apart from the cousin who I'm in contact with, the rest of my family have buried their heads in the sands, and it's like the elephant in the room. My two lads, or I say my husband and my two lads, basically we gave them all the information and the facts, and they went and had the genetics and testing done, and fantastically, neither of them have got it.
Oh,
so
that's great.
that was my main worry. And for me, that was just fantastic, particularly as my eldest child is also autistic, so I didn't want to sort of burden him to have two things to have to deal with. So yeah, it's been fantastic, but my immediate family, absolutely on the ball. My son's partners on the ball, they're really with it and they're really tuned into it, so it's good.
Oh, great. And what coping strategies do you say you use for kind of dealing with the day-to-day of living with lipodystrophy?
Well, I try to look at myself as unique, that I try to look on the positive side of everything, and I try and develop a positive mental attitude. That's not to say I have my bad days, because of some of the health problems I've been left with, because when I got diagnosed, basically I was so far down the line with underlying health conditions, it was a little bit too late, if you know what I mean, trying to shut the stable door after the horse had bolted. But I lean on my family a lot. If they're there if I have a bad day, but most of the time I try and look on the positives, like the diet, what I can eat as opposed to what I can't eat, what I can do as opposed to what I can't do. And that's about it, really. I just try and look on the best of everything. I'm still here. I had health problems, massive health problems a few years back, 2017, and by rights I shouldn't be here, but I am. So that is my positive, and every day is a bonus. So that's the way I look at it.
That's a great way to look at it, because I certainly get sometimes into that cycle of focusing what I can't do or what I can't have, and that's a really great way to think about it, actually, because you kind of flip it on its head completely. And I can imagine it does really, really help, because as soon as you go down that spiral of what I can't have or what I can't do, it's just a really dark place from that point. So yeah, that's a really great way to look at it.
I think and I think that comes as well, not because I'm elderly, because I'm only 57, but it comes from being a little bit old and having seen life. I've been picked on, I've been bullied because of the way I look as a child. And prior to the serious health issues in 2017, I actually was a lot bigger. And now I'm skin and bones, because as a result, all the weight's just gone. I mean, that's helped by the metreleptin as well, which I'm also on, which I've been lucky enough to start since then. So, but I mean, for younger people, I can see that it would be really hard, because they're not like their peer groups, and they feel like they're different to everyone else. And it is hard over years, but I think over time, you tend to build up that bit of resilience, and you sort of think, I don't care what people think about me, I'll just do whatever. So
yeah, I agree. I'm the same as well. I've definitely, from when I was in my 20s to now, it's been such a difference to, it used to absolutely kill me, the thought of going out, and I still don't necessarily show my legs as such, but I do definitely have a different, it's just different now. I'm not as absolutely fearful of someone seeing my legs, or kind of just really worried about the judgment. I kind of accept at the moment. It's not always easy, but I'm in a place where I accept the judgment is going to be there, but it doesn't actually really mean anything. It doesn't actually mean I look undesirable, or I'm not very nice, you know, and so many things. I've kind of found a way to just kind of accept that it's going to happen. Not always, though. There are definitely some days I've found where someone will make a comment and it will really kind of get me down and I'll get upset. But I do know what you mean about over time you kind of build a bit of a thicker skin around it.
Absolutely. And I mean, I must admit as well, I do wear clothes to try and sort of minimize the impact of my body, but if I have to display my body, I'm not that bothered anymore. My body is like a roadmap to Mafeking. It's I am covered in so many scars, surgical scars, basically, that it doesn't really detract from anything. I mean, people make comments. I've got a massive big chest scar, and people make comments about that. So it's just like, well, so what? It's just life.
Yeah, exactly.
So I'm not so worried about bits of my body being on display now. It's just like, it is what it is. So
yeah,
and I don't worry about having to wear a bikini or swimsuit or anything like that. And my husband's not bothered about my body and what it looks like, because he said he loves me for me. So and that's it. Bottom line.
How would you say metreleptin has impacted you since taking it?
Wow, it has been absolutely amazing. Before I started on it, no matter what I did, even with my diet and with exercising, I was hungry. I'm obviously hungry all the time, but my triglycerides and cholesterol levels were still high, above acceptable levels. My diabetes was out of control. I just struggled to get it all under control. And even that, sticking to a rigid 25 grams per day fat diet and restricting carbs and protein and everything else made no difference. It has been a miracle drug. It has just been a game changer, basically. It has made such a huge difference. Diabetes is in spec, or my blood triglycerides, cholesterol, everything's come back down to normal. I wouldn't say it doesn't help with the tiredness, because my body still can't utilise, hasn't got the energy it should have. But it just makes it easier because I'm not dealing with everything else. So
yeah,
it's been absolutely fantastic, and I think it should be more widely available than perhaps it has been up to now. I know that NICE have recently approved it for the UK, for England, so which is absolutely fantastic, because I was actually concerned enough that without that, the fat levels going back up again to unacceptable levels, my health would have taken a real nosedive, and I would have been heading towards an early death. Now I know that I'm okay as long as I do what I need to do, which is I still stick to a reduced fat diet, but not strict as I was. So it's fantastic. I don't ever worry about what my blood tests are going to come back at. They always used to be like really uptight when I used to get letters from Cambridge giving me the outcomes of the clinic and what all my blood results were, because I used to get so uptight. No, it don't matter what I do, nothing's working. So yeah.
So many individuals have said similar stories to you, that it's really helped with their blood sugars. Some not. It seems to be quite dependent on the individual, but some have said the same thing as you, that it's really helped with their cholesterol and triglycerides. So that's really great to hear. And especially I can totally imagine the relief to hear that it's going to be continued as a treatment, because I can only imagine the anxiety of feeling that might potentially be taken away would have been quite a difficult thought.
Quite a trying, not just for me but for my family as well. They wrote letters to MPs and everything in support, because they were obviously very, very concerned. As I say, the really, really, really big thing is the hunger. I'm not hungry now. It means I can eat a meal and feel full. And I don't have.
Amazing.
My husband used to call it, "You've got munchies again." I could use it before. Could eat a full meal, a big meal, and then I'd be going off looking for something else to eat. Now I don't have that, and I feel full, up until the next meal time, and I'm not constantly thinking about food, and it's fantastic. So.
Oh my gosh, that sounds like the dream.
It used to be. I couldn't believe that one drug could just make that much difference. But it's a miracle drug as far as I'm concerned. And I'm just so pleased it's going to be available to everyone eventually. And I think that's really, really important, but not just here, worldwide.
Yeah, I completely agree. Yeah, because the hunger is just, that it's so much that comes with it, because you're aware of it, especially if you are diagnosed with lipodystrophy. I mean, beforehand, I was just always labelled greedy and very gluttonous. And I'm like, but people then would look at me and there'll be so many elements of my body that still looks quite slim. So they'd be really confused as to why I would be eating so much. I'd have quite a big round belly and quite a big face, but everywhere else was really slim. And there was just this connotation of me that I was just this absolutely greedy person. Oh, if something's gone missing in the house, has Becky eaten it? And it was just to kind of get an understanding of, that we're not greedy, we're not gluttonous. It is not our fault. It is, it's a hormonal imbalance that's completely out of our control. So yeah, I can totally imagine why getting that under control and not thinking about food all the time, and then having that kind of guilt that comes with it, thinking, oh my gosh, I am being really greedy, but it's not my fault. And yeah, I can totally imagine how that would just, even that alone, have such an impact on day-to-day life. Absolutely.
I mean, I used to have the big round face and everything, the big belly and the whole works, and it's just amazing now. So
and did you say leptin helped you with weight loss?
Yeah, I mean, the surgery, the problems I had in early 2017, I lost a lot of weight because I was after some treatment. But then when I went on the leptin, I lost even more weight. And, I was around 10 and a half, 11 stone. I'm now 7 stone 10.
Wow, so it's quite.
Unfortunately, I've got wrinkles.
Oh, you don't look like you have wrinkles.
But it's they're good wrinkles. They're because they're not, because they show that the leptins worked and I'm not overweight and everything else. And for the first time in ages, I've actually had, since I started, and it sounds really daft, I have a waist.
Oh.
I'm shocked because, oh no, I've got a waist again. I haven't had one in years.
Oh.
I know, but it was just such like a revelation for me. So yeah, it's fantastic.
That's great. And what would you like others to know about you and what it's like living with lipodystrophy? So this can be for friends, family, or people that you meet for the first time that obviously don't live with the condition.
What I would say is when I was first diagnosed, there was so much to take on board. It was really, really frightening. How do I put it? And it was the fact that there's so much associated with it, and not every person who's diagnosed with lipodystrophy has the same complications or develops the same thing. Some go through and it's really mild. Other people go through and they get all these serious health conditions, and that's the really frightening thing, not knowing what's coming, and also knowing that you can't do anything about it because there is no miracle cure, unlike some conditions. The metreleptin, like I said, is a game changer, and that will help a lot of people, I believe. Living with lipodystrophy, basically for me now, it's just a way of life. It doesn't rule my life. It's not who I am. I am someone who has lipodystrophy, and I just very much take it a day at a time, and it is what it is. The only thing that I would say is that you have to be your own advocate. You have to know about your lipodystrophy when talking to any medical professionals outside of Cambridge, because they don't know what it is, and you're constantly having to explain what it is. I carry little leaflets with me to explain about it simply, which I've printed off the internet, because you have to explain all the time, because it's not just about the lifestyle you lead and what the side effects. There's also things like there's certain drugs that possibly you shouldn't have. I know one of the anaesthetic drugs I've been told not to have is Diprivan because it's fat based. So there's other things out there that you perhaps shouldn't have. And when we go out now, we go out outside COVID, we go out for lunch most days with my husband and I. When we go to cafes where I know that they can cater for me, but I have a little piece of paper that says what I can't eat. And so I normally ask if they can do something around that, and I just take whatever comes. I'm not too fussy, but it just takes a bit of planning and thinking about, but it's become my normal routine now for what I do, and I just try and carry on a normal life as possible, really.
Is there anything else you would like to add that you feel maybe I've not asked or we've not covered?
No, the only thing I would say, metreleptin is just like amazing. My husband would agree that it's amazing. So it's just one injection a day, and that is, I'm not keen on needles, but it's such a fine, it's fine, and it works, and it's a small price to pay to have this result that I have now. So it's amazing. And lipodystrophy doesn't have to stop your life. You can carry on as normal. You just need to make modifications. I would say to people, modify things, but try not to let it rule your life. It is not who you are. Don't let it define you. You are you. You are just someone who happens to have something that is not working as normal. That's the best I could say, really.
Yeah, that's great. And you learn to work with it, in a sense. It's not working as normal, but you find a way to work with it and work around it, don't you? So
absolutely. My family do exactly the same as well with foods thing. They work around it. And that said, I have absolutely no problems cooking properly for my husband and doing everything with the creams and everything else that he wants. That's fine. And I just do my version.
Yeah, a little separate side pan of your own. I have that.
But it works quite well. There's no differentiation, and I would never stop him having what he wants. He has his cheeses and his cold meats in the fridge, and I don't touch them. So there's plenty of other stuff out there that you can work with. So yeah, that's about it. Just try and carry on as normal, and talk to someone. Counselling will help as well. That's the only thing I can say really about with the lipodystrophy. It's also important that people know that there's help out there, and that they need to reach out and talk to people about how they're coping with it. I mean, if I have a problem, I contact Ivan Brooks, one of the nurses there. But I wish the lipodystrophy community well, and I hope they all have a positive experience, and that they can get their lives on track and under control, but recognise that it doesn't always. You're going to have bad days, and you just have to accept that. Like any normal person, we always have bad days. So.
Exactly. Oh, it's been really lovely talking to you, Karen. Thank you so much.